Good morning. My name is Dr. Angela Cooper Brathwaite, and I'm the immediate past president of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Today's webinar is the last webinar for the President-elect series, and I want to thank you for joining us today. And this year's election is particularly special as it is the first election following the adoption of the President-elect criteria to RNAO bylaws from 2019 and the development of the Leadership Succession Committee in 2020. This committee is comprised of the President, the immediate past President, immediate preceding past President, one member of the Provincial Nominations Committee, one member of the Assembly, and Chief Executive Officer. The purpose of the committee is to facilitate the nomination process of the President-elect position and to be presented to the President and the Board of Directors. I would like to thank the candidates, committee members, Board of Directors, and staff for their contributions and support. In addition to the general requirement for nominations for the President-elect, you will have the person who is running for the nomination or being submitted their names must be a director or have been a director on the board for a minimum of 2 consecutive years within 10 years period, immediately preceding their nominations as President-elect. They must have a minimum of 5 years nursing experience as a registered nurse and part of the association. It could be a registered nurse or nurse practitioner. Must have maintained membership in RNAO for a minimum of 5 consecutive years preceding their nominations. They have demonstrated support for the mission and values of RNAO, possess an understanding of the fiduciary stewardship of RNAO, and experience in fiscal oversight, including reviewing financial statements and audits. Demonstrate an active interest in the work of RNAO, its domain, including policy, advocacy, communications, membership, and international affairs and best practice guidelines, and participate in an interview with the leading succession committee. Today, we have 2 candidates who are running for elections. They are here with us present, and the format for today for this webinar, the candidates will introduce her or himself or they for 5 minutes. Then first candidate introduce herself. Then the second candidate introduce herself. Then I, as the moderator, will have 15 minutes to ask questions. We have some questions that were already pre-designed. We have questions that were submitted by other members. I will ask those questions as well. And then once those questions are answered, we will ask the audience to post any questions they have in the chat box or to raise their hand feature on the Zoom to ask a question, and you would be unmuted to ask your questions. Once the floor has been opened and people are able to ask their questions, we have a closing remarks, 2 minutes for each candidate. And then I would make my final comments for the day. So the order of the speakers were randomly selected. The last webinar we had last week, Claudette was the first speaker. So today, Maria is the first speaker. So please, I welcome to you Maria Rugg and Claudette Holloway.
Thank you so much, Angela and Claudette. Before we begin, on behalf of the meeting here and Claudette and myself, I would just like to give a land acknowledgement. The land that we're sharing today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we thank them. And I also just want to acknowledge that as an organization, we stand in solidarity with all those who stand in support of the Muslims across this country and against agents of hate and terror. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we started. So thank you. My name is Maria Wag, and I'm currently working as a clinical nurse specialist in palliative care in the community hospital here in Toronto. And I've been in the nursing profession for more than 30 years, and I am committed to ensuring quality care and person and family-centered nursing practice. I've worked, volunteered, and held leadership roles in various care settings, including primary care, public health, acute care, community care, academia, and hospice care. I've given care to individuals and families across their lifespan, the youngest being 23 weeks and the oldest being 110. And at present, I am part of a leadership team that is driving the culture of excellence and compassion in person-centered care as it relates to palliative care. I am and have been an active member of the RNAO for close to those 30 years as well, in multiple capacities, including as a nursing student, nurse practitioner, advanced practice nurse, and registered nurse. Within these roles, I've had the privilege and honor to represent nursing in Ontario in many active ways to ensure the vision of speaking out for nursing and speaking out for health. These have included multiple executive roles in different interest groups, membership on the board of directors, serving in multiple committees, including nursing practice, and representing the membership. Throughout my time as a member of RNAO, I've also continued to pursue the mission of nursing excellence, advocacy, and driving change in Ontario's healthcare system by being part of the development of several BPGs, being an assembly member, and participating in several Queen's Park Days and successfully submitting resolutions. As a member of RNAO and through their leadership, I've been able to develop networks and collaborations that have positioned me to represent the nursing voice for those we care for at many local, provincial, national, and international forums. I am passionate about the RNAO and its role in nursing practice and the health of all Ontarians. This past year has shown me more than ever that is an extraordinary time for nursing practice, and RNAO is a professional association representing that practice. There are many opportunities facing us and those we have committed to care for. Some of those that I highlight right now include the artificial intelligence and information technology that we are facing to deliver compassionate care, how to best reflect moral principles of justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice, and how best to make that knowledge, skill, and judgment in helping to create a sense of psychological safety for all persons. And finally, the critical significance of mental health and well-being of persons and the ways in which the mental health of nurses affects the standard of care we are able to provide. I believe that we must remember that innovation is born in the moments of crisis. Since the time of Florence Nightingale, nursing practice has faced challenges in delivery of care and advocacy for persons, families, communities, and populations. Nightingale identified what persons in her care needed not only to survive, but to become vibrant members of their society. This spirit of discovery and innovation that she embodied has been the seed for growth of the modern nursing practice, and RNAO is the leader of that charge and has inspired me to embrace this opportunity to seek to represent you in the role of President-elect to meet these opportunities. I want to close by expressing my commitment to help continue to grow the mandate and membership of the RNAO and shaping those trends in nursing practice by attending to and helping give voice to all RNs, NPs, and nursing students, persons and their families in the province of Ontario. I believe it is only when we see ourselves and those we care for and represent, and they see themselves in us, that we can truly meet the demands of the principles of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. These are the values that lie at the heart of our profession, a profession which I commit through this role to continue to help lead RNAO into the nursing profession of the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maria. And now we would ask Claudette to give a 5 minutes presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper-Brathwaite. My name is Claudette Holloway, a registered nurse for over 3 decades and a proud member of RNAO for over 25 years. I respect and honor the Indigenous peoples on whose land I now reside. I offer my condolences to the families who are further traumatized by the recent horrific discovery of children's bodies. There is much work ahead to find truth and implement an effective system transformation towards meaningful reconciliation. I offer condolences to the families and communities who recently suffered loss due to Islamophobia in London, Ontario. Hate has no place in this world, and we must take steps to ensure the nursing profession tackles and stamps out racism and discrimination. My thoughts and prayers are for the child who survived. Each violent act reawakens the injustices that have affected so many of us and our families historically and recently. I am passionate about bringing people together to advance health policy and reduce and eliminate all forms of discrimination and racism. It is a priority to tackle systemic racism against Blacks, Indigenous, Asians, and all racialized populations in nursing and the healthcare system. I acknowledge the tremendous courage and commitment of nurses and healthcare workers who press on, and those who have lost their lives in the fight against the pandemic. I am a of RNAO. My goals in leading RNAO will be to increase our membership by an each one, bring one approach, address the gaps that are urgent in nursing and the healthcare system, such as standards for long-term care, better utilization of nurse practitioners, fair compensation for nurses, addressing racism and discrimination in the workplace and in the nursing education system through policy development, educating, training, and mentoring. It is an honor to be listed on the slate of nominations for president-elect. I am qualified for this role because for years I've demonstrated progressive involvement with RNAO, participated on the board and committees, engaged with members, and met with politicians to speak out for nursing and health. During 4 years as on the board of directors, I participated in decision-making to protect and advance the RNAO ends. I gained experience in governance, leadership, and political advocacy. I represented RNAO at several political events, and I worked with the Region 7's executive to achieve the Chapter of the Year award in 2016. I have learned from the mentorship and role modeling that is available through RNAO activities from both members and staff. I see the possibilities that we can advance mentoring within an equity lens. I bring experience from filling in for the president at several events, York Television, political party events, presentations to students, the annual Medical Association events, Remembrance Day observances, and the burial of our dear Zara and her children. These opportunities provided me with the chance to grow and strengthen my ability in handling challenging conversations, critical thinking, and networking effectively. In 2018, I received the RNAO Student Mentorship Award. I provided leadership to the Region 7 executive, and we were successful in engaging over 400 student memberships for RNAO. I belong to several RNAO interest groups. These groups assist me to stay informed on current issues and trends. I am currently the executive director of the Jamaican Canadian Association of Nurses, a charitable organization founded in 2014 by an existing RNAO member. Here, I continue to grow professionally and broaden my leadership skills at the senior level. I take steps in staying informed on the rapid changes in healthcare and the gaps that nurses have identified in the system. I am gaining ability in the use of Twitter to message decision makers and support nurses. My entire education path includes the doctorate level, being a Canadian certified health executive. These help me to express ideas, engage effectively to learn, and to be prepared for system transformation dialogue. In closing, my career path spans frontline, management, acute care, midwifery, community health, public health, and sessional instruction at Ryerson. I also do health teaching for my faith group. I am ready and prepared to serve as your president-elect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudette. And before I start asking the first question, and Maria is going to be starting first, and then we'll rotate. The first question has two parts to it, part A and part B. And I would like to encourage the candidates to give you specific individual questions, not building on one another's questions. So you answer me like if you did not hear the other person, okay, when it's your turn. So my question to you, RNAO promotes membership diversity and individual and is representing RNs, NPs, nursing students within all sectors of healthcare and all roles that reflect gender, ethnicity, race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, etc. With the rise of anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-Asian, anti-Muslim violence, how would you support RNAO in addressing racism against these and other minority groups? That's my question 1A, and then I will ask B. So Maria, you are the first speaker for today.
Thank you, Angela. These are definitively difficult issues that we are facing, building great momentum, in particularly now in our society. And in terms of how I would support RNAO in addressing these, much of what RNAO has been doing, I would continue to support. Part of the awareness building and of what RNAO is doing now with regards to anti-Black racism in forums that they have been having, as well as the development of the Indigenous Nurses Interest Group, and really trying to bring the issues to the forefront and having our membership being able to speak to those issues, the support of resolutions that have come forward addressing this type of work that's going on. Also, what I feel would be important for someone in the role of president-elect to do is to ensure that RNAO with its board continues to, as well as the CEO, continue to be at the tables where these things are being addressed and discussed, both politically and within the social network. So ensuring that we have representation on our board of all populations, religions, ethnicity, gender identity, and ensuring that those voices have a seat at the table would be what I would try to do within this role to help RNA to continue the work they have been doing, but also forward a greater representation.
Thank you. And I will next go to this B part of the question. As president of RNAO, please provide 3 concrete strategies you will use to fight racism against Blacks, Indigenous, Asians, and Muslim nurses. So you have 2 minutes to answer that.
And that's back to me, Angela, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So 3 concrete strategies. As president of RNAO, one would be for myself, the representation and the support of bylaws, I think, at the board that would ensure that these populations are represented specifically on the board of directors, as well as the looking at the resolutions and the ends specifically, and making sure that we have committees that address these specific fights within racism, and having interest groups as well as opportunities for interest groups to be at the table representing in particular these populations, bringing those resolutions forward to continue to make accurate stands and clear stands against anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-Asian, and anti-Muslim racism. And then finally, I think beyond that, what I would, in terms of a concrete strategy, would actually be to ensure that nursing is at the table, and ensuring that this type of education and ongoing knowledge translation is happening at best practice guideline level, so helping to move that strategy forward and looking to advocate for these principles at nursing education tables.
Thank you very much, Maria. Now, Claudette, it's your turn. And I'll read the question again. RNAO promotes membership diversity and individualism, and we're representing RNs, NPs, nursing students with all sectors of healthcare, all roles that reflect gender, ethnicity, race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, etc. With the rise of anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-Asian, anti-Muslim violence, how would you support RNAO in addressing racism against these groups and other minority groups in Ontario?
Thank you, Angela. The first thing would be to get some input from all those groups that we've mentioned in this question. We've already started with the anti-Black task force, but we need to extend this to the Indigenous, the Asian, the Muslim communities, so that we can start to hear the stories and hear how people are affected. We need to bring them to the table. We need to include some of the community groups who have further information to identify the challenge that is happening. As RNAO members, we need to take a stand that we need a zero tolerance policy, so that it's very clear that within our ranks that this is addressed, that there's some discipline when these things are not upheld. We need to reach out to our College of Nurses. We need to help them to understand the importance in collecting data so that we can get the full scope of what is happening. We know the mental health impacts of what these groups are experiencing. We can only hear that tip part of the iceberg. There's so much more. This is a huge challenge within our nursing profession, and as RNAO, we really need to step to it. We need to make sure that it is addressed within our own organization for our staff, that we have policies in place, that there's consequences when these things are not addressed. So this cannot be just dusted under the carpet. It needs to be brought out. We need to put strategies in place because people may feel threatened, put strategies in place to support the education and looking at values and how we can move forward together, because together it's the only way that we can deal with this. We need to bring our allies on board, understand that they're allies, and help to educate those who are interested, but also make it mandatory in some way that we will have a zero tolerance policy for this.
Thank you. And the second part of that question is, as president of RNAO, please provide 3 concrete strategies you will use to fight racism against Blacks, Indigenous, Asians, and Muslim nurses.
Thank you, Angela. I believe that we need, as a president, I would like to see some kind of a charter that clearly states where we stand in terms of anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-Asian, anti-Muslim. We don't want any violence or any discrimination for these groups. We need a charter to state it clearly. We need to have a clear plan on how we're going to educate, how we're going to, perhaps we can develop a toolkit to help other agencies address this, that we have a strategy where we have representation on all committees, representation on the board, and again, a strategy where we can make a proposal to our college so that we can hold them accountable, and encourage organizations that are involved in nursing and the healthcare system that we need to have a strong approach, a zero tolerance approach for consequences when these laws are flawed. So it's almost like we need to go to something in the bylaws. I don't know if legally how that works, but we need to make it very strong, and we need to be very clear that the time is now. This has gone on for long enough, and there's no room to continue to put it on the second burner. This is priority, and we need to step to it right away. So I would be looking to advance all these strategies in collaboration with the board and the CEO, how we can move forward to put some real action. We've heard that members of communities don't trust politicians. We need to help them trust RNAO that we are going to do something positive and meaningful.
Thank you. So the next question has two parts. The first part is, and now Claudette, it's your turn to respond to this question. RNAO's president and board of directors are accountable and responsible for all the fiduciary matters of the association. As RNAO's president, how would you protect and guard these matters?
Thank you, Angela. In terms of guarding the fiduciary and accountability, first of all, we need to make sure that I am being clear that I am not in any conflict of interest, making sure that our board of director members also are not in any conflict of interest, that I truly and honestly support the direction and making sure of RNAO, and making sure that all our assets are targeted towards supporting what the organization is doing, that I'm truly representing what belongs to our members. So taking that very, very seriously and realizing the legal implications should I not do so. Making sure that we have controls in place, making sure that our spending is appropriate, that we have policies that protect that our CEO is monitoring how our staff are spending, that our CEO is actually spending based on what we have guided as a board, that we're not like some of these boards where they find suddenly that the CEO has spent all the money and we don't know where it's gone. So being very protective of that, making sure that we've met all the legal responsibilities that are required by our government in terms of taxes, making sure that we have things in place that will support our members who have legal representation with us, making sure that that is all accounted for, and that we are truly maintaining a stable organization financially in all of our assets and our endeavors.
Thank you. You have a second part to the question, and it is, provide 3 potential financial risks that you and the board of directors should mitigate before they occur, and how would you mitigate them?
Financial risk would be making sure that our investments are secure, that we've invested money with minimal risk by support from our director of finance and our auditors who take care of our books. So making sure that we are investing appropriately, making sure that we have a building now, and making sure that we have mortgage payments and the payments that we may have to provide to cover our legal representation of nurses, to making sure that is in place, making sure that we have policies so that should anyone in the building get any kind of injury, that we have some insurance that would protect that. So before they occur, would be, again, education of our staff to make sure that we have everything in place, that our board and our president, that we understand the full implications of what those financial challenges are, that we are legally in a position to manage all of our affairs, and that we are very clear about what our debts are and how we intend to plan to spend down through the years, so that we're always having that our reserve funds, that we have some funds that are restricted, so that the organization is in a stable state.
Thank you, Claudette. Maria, it's your turn, and I will ask the question. RNAO's president and board of directors are accountable and responsible for all the fiduciary matters of the association. As RNAO president, how would you protect and guard these matters?
Thank you, Angela. So as RNAO's president, the protection and guarding of these matters falls, I think, into line with the role of the board of directors. And as president of the organization and leading that board, I think the way to guard and protect and make sure is ensuring that we have policies and dedicated positions in place to account for regular updates on what our risks are, what our financial positions are, and also with regards to looking at ensuring that we have conflicts of interest declared on a regular basis, and ensuring that we understand what those conflicts of interest are. Also ensuring that our responsibility in terms of our fiduciary matters are dealt with in a way that reflects the laws and guidelines of boards of directors of not-for-profit and corporations. And what I think the president is responsible for is ensuring that those mechanisms are in place, and ensuring that the board and the CEO and those employed by the organization are meeting those responsibilities as laid out with legal frameworks, policies, and important auditing of the fiduciary responsibility.
Thank you, Maria. The next part B of this question is, provide 3 potential financial risks that you and the board of directors should mitigate before they occur, and how you would mitigate them.
So as a large organization, I think there are ongoing financial risks that we are always, and that's part of quality control and quality improvement. And the things that we are potentially, some of the things of potential financial risks, and how we should be mitigating them before they occur, and how they are being mitigated. One is always the risk of ensuring that there is enough money in the bank to take care of the employees of the corporation or the organization. So the mitigation of that is ensuring that the books are continually being audited, and that we having reports from the directors of finance on a regular basis to the board of directors to give us financial updates of what's happening, where the money is being used, and how it's being taken care of. One of the other things is with regards to insurance, and certainly when you are a large organization such as the RNAO that has many of those individuals who potentially are at risk, ensuring that we have the proper insurance and things to mitigate the safety of the membership and its dollars that are being put into the organization. And so policies, insurance policies, the proper individuals such as the lawyers and the auditors to make sure that we are observing and watching what's happening, and knowing that we have policies that within our ends that commit us to making good financial investments.
Thank you very much, Maria. So now we have a question from the audience that came. Okay, this question came from the audience. So now it's Claudette's turn. No. Yep. What would be your priority action if you were to be successful? Sorry. What is your priority action if you were successfully elected as the president of RNAO? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Angela. Priority action would be to deal with some of the gaps that our nurses have identified as huge gaps in the system. So we want to make sure that our nurses are protected, that they're cared for so that they can best take care of the people that they're serving. So we need to address supplies, safety provisions of supplies. We need to make sure that we've addressed their mental health. We need to ensure that we have looked at fair compensation for them. So then look at and move forward how we can protect those in long-term care, especially standards, making sure that we can properly utilize our nurse practitioners for their full scope and the full scope of all nurses. So it's not just one priority, there are a number of things we need to move forward, the anti-racism policies. All these things would be priority for me to move forward. Then we also need to continue some of those things that are still on the back burner, such as addressing homelessness, the underhoused, the mental health challenges. So there are a number of things. I know people can say there's only one priority, but there are many priorities. And I think as a president and as a board of directors, we can find ways to diversify this so that we can utilize all that we have, bringing in toolkits to help other organizations, to help our own staff to move forward on anti-racism, on how we can better serve our public and how we can better support our nurses.
Thank you, Claudette. And Maria, your turn to answer the question. What would be your priority action if you were to be successfully elected as the president of RNAO?
Thank you, Claudette. Thank you, Angela. It's an excellent question. Much like Claudette, there are so many things. I guess the way I would summarize my priority action is to really, for our membership and those that we represent, is to find those mechanisms which we can bring people out of what's happened post COVID-19. I think COVID-19 has shown us what RNAO has already been talking about over and over again, the gaps in the system. And so my priority would be to really be able to deep dive into those gaps and to really bring forward the strength of the membership and what we've been working on and touting in order to address those gaps in a real way. So really the priority for me would be action at this point and taking action on all those things that we've talked about, in particular around, ensuring that our nurses have what they need in terms of salary and equipment, and those that we care for have what they need, in particular the 4 hours for our seniors. So really trying to identify those gaps in the system specifically that were COVID-19 brought up, and push the government to make good on all the promises that they put forward.
Thank you very much, Maria. I think do we have a question in the chat box?
Yes, we do. I'll just read that out now.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is from Barbara Anderson, and the question is, what is your position on the RNAO's relationship with the CNA? With the upcoming constitution and bylaw changes of the CNA, will you commit to advocating for a collaborative relationship with the CNA?
So Maria, it's your turn.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Barbara. That's a great question. I think RNAO does have a collaborative relationship with the CNA, and I believe that what we want to do is just continue to strengthen that relationship, and continue to find ways to work together as the national organization. The CNA is working together with all the provincial organizations, and RNAO has continued, despite some differences of opinions, to continue to have a collaborative relationship. So within the role of president, I think we continue those collaborations. We continue to have opportunities and take opportunities to reach out and work together on those things that we share, which is a commitment to nursing and commitment to, health for all citizens. And part of that is continuing dialogue and continuing to be able to be present at those discussions.
Thank you, Maria. Now, Claudette, it's your turn to respond to that question.
Can you please reread the question?
Yeah, no problem. So the question is, what is your position on the RNAO's relationship with CNA? With the upcoming CNA constitution and bylaw changes, what will you commit to in advocating for a collaborative relationship with the CNA?
Thank you. I am a member of CNA and always have been, and I support our national association. And I believe that we have much that we can do collaborating. I think that we have gone through some areas of disagreements, but I think if we look at the big picture, and I believe that RNAO can take a leadership role here, I think we always have. We can take that leadership role to say, yes, let's collaborate. I would like to see it taken even further. I would like to see that just how we've just had a recent G7 globally, I would like to see us have an N5 with CNA, CNO, RNAO, ONA, and the provincial group. I would like to see us get together. Let's pull together as nurses and advocate with our governments and those decision makers, those people in power, to really bring things around to better nursing. We are so much stronger than when we're together. We must help everyone understand that RNAO will not be muzzled. We will not just stay for Ontario. We're here to advocate wherever we see the need. So I think if we can come forward in that spirit of unity without anyone trying to bind us, that we can do so much more. And it will be the betterment. If we think about the public that we serve, that should bring us together. So I'm very passionate about this because I was there in the heat of the argument when we kind of went our separate ways. But I know from RNAO, we always had that open door. We were always encouraged to be members. So I see great possibilities. I see great hope. And I think together we can definitely make a difference, particularly in what we've just come through in the pandemic and how it has affected our nursing profession, all not only here in Ontario, across Canada, across the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudette. Are there any other questions?
No questions at this moment.
Okay, we're doing good for time. So I would ask the candidate to bring the closing remarks. And you have 2 minutes to bring your closing remarks. And I can't remember who's going to go first, but I guess it's Claudette and then Maria.
Well, thank you, Angela. Again, I'm really privileged to be on this list of president-elect nominations. Again, I would like to emphasize the goals that I have for the organization, that I would like to advance our nursing membership in RNAO, nurses, students, nurse practitioners. I want to see that each one bring one. I believe that we can increase our numbers to even have a bigger impact. We're already a well-respected profession. I want to see us have even more impact. On top of that, then I want to move forward those gaps that nurses have identified. We have nurses, so many diverse nurses, practitioners, those who are in intensive care units that have identified their challenges, public health, the frontline nurses, the community nurses, our clinical nurse specialists. I want to advance, listen to them and advance together with our board of directors, how we can really very clear to those that are in positions of power, where we stand, what we want to see. I also want to make sure that we come down very strong on any racism. I want to eliminate racism for the Black community, the Indigenous community, the Asian community, and all racialized populations. So I look forward to working with you. I've been involved in RNAO in many things. You see me singing, you see me drumming. I am in RNAO and I stand ready to serve as your president-elect. Thank you.
Okay, now Maria, it's your turn to give your closing remarks.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Claudette. This, as I had said in my opening remarks, has been extraordinary time for nursing and the RNAO, and it is part of what's driven me to want to take up this opportunity. I think the things that I bring to the table in terms of this wanting to seek out this role are really the things that RNAO has inspired throughout my career, which is really that idea of seeing myself or ourselves and all those we care for, and they seeing themselves in us. My commitment to you and to all of the RNAO membership is this, that I will continue to want to seek out to find the nursing voice and ensure the nursing voice of RNs and Ps and nursing students is at all the tables to continue to make our society, in particular in Ontario, but across Canada and across the world, that which nursing has always been driven to do, which is really to be able to ensure that all in society have a voice, and that voice is represented by us. So I am very honored and for the privilege of being able to say I have been given, and even attempting to run with such phenomenal candidate. And so I commit to you that I'm in RNAO for good, no matter what role I play. And I really do appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
I would just like to thank our candidates. And I know this has been a learning experience for you because the whole process has been changed. And I hope this learning process and what you've learned going through this process will help you in all your future endeavors. I thank you so much for your engagement, your creativity, your dedication, your responses to our questions today. And I also thank our members who engaged during the past 2 sessions, the one last week and this week. I thank our Board of Governors. I thank our CEO, RNAO staff, for making this a very engaging session. And I would just like to remind you that the webinar would be archived on my RNAO, and you can find a link to them on the election page. I also want to remind you, it's time to vote. Voting closes the 24th of June at noon. Remember to vote, encourage your colleagues to vote. One vote makes a difference. So I encourage all people who are here today and will listen to this taping or recording to vote, okay? And on June the 17th, from 1 to 2 p.m., the regional representatives will be doing their final webinar with me this week. Thank you so much for participating and have an enjoyable rest of the day. Bye for now.